Good evening, viewers. Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to today's podcast. We are extremely honoured to have with us today Dr. Emily Tomlinson, Head of Admissions from the University of Cambridge, representing both your college, I would say, Christ College, and the university as a whole.
Yep.
Is that correct, Emily? Welcome to the GC School. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
our podcast.
Yep. So not head of admissions for all of Cambridge, head of admissions for Christ, but here to talk on behalf of all of Cambridge.
Great. And it's lovely to have you back. We were just discussing earlier, is this your fifth time back at the GC School? Sixth? I think we didn't...
Fifth or sixth. We couldn't quite work it out, but yeah, it's been a number of years.
Great. It's always a pleasure to have you. We've tried to mix it up this year. So we brought you here to our podcast room so that even more students and parents can hear what you have to say.
Okay.
We can jump straight in.
Sure.
And I can ask you, what makes a strong application stand out, in your opinion?
Okay, so I think that applications to Cambridge stand out for different reasons at different stages of the process, and it does vary a little bit by course. So if you're applying for law or medicine or another subject for which there is an admissions test, then the thing that will make you stand out when we get the test scores is a really strong score. Obviously, you'd stand out if you had a really bad score too, but not for the right reasons. So that's what we're looking for at the very early stage. We'll also be looking at IGCSEs. If you've done IGCSEs, we'd be looking at your AS level grades if you're applying before you finish school, which most people are. And I think one thing I would say about Cambridge, which is unusual, we're the only UK university that will ask you not just for your grades at AS level, but your unit module scores. Yeah. So we'll see whether you just scraped your A at AS level by 2 marks or whether, you were really up there pushing the A-star boundary. So strong UMS will make you stand out when we get that information. And then obviously if you do really well at interview, we'll be thinking about that. And then, we do look at other things like personal statement, but I think personal statement is something that students worry about quite a lot, and rightly, because it can be a deal breaker for other UK universities. Less important to stand out in your personal statement, yeah, I would say.
Obviously, I'm assuming that most students, if not all students that apply to the University of Cambridge, are applying with straight A-star grades, at least at IGCSE and A-levels. So is that where the admissions test comes in, and that's where you can really pick the highest achieving students?
Well, I mean, it's worth saying, obviously, that we don't use admissions tests in every subject. Because we're quite a well-known university, actually we attract quite a large number of highly speculative applications. So you would think that most applicants to Cambridge would have A-star prediction, A-stars at IGCSE or 8s or 9s at GCSE. You'd think that they would have A-star predictions, and most of them do, but there is always a kind of subset who don't. And obviously we have quite a lot of applicants who haven't done IGCSEs or A-levels. So the tests are useful for 2 reasons. Yes, they let us discriminate between students with broadly comparable IGCSE and AS level profiles, but they also let us compare those students against students who've come from different qualification systems.
And that actually brings us to a nice point. We mentioned earlier students applying with achievements such as the International Maths Olympiad, medals in that competition, in that qualification. I mean, that's something I'm assuming that would really make an application stand out.
Yeah, I mean, there are different ways that students can stand out to us at the point of application. And I do want to stress that not every applicant, even for maths at Cambridge, has an International Maths Olympiad medal. There are some students who are not interested in that kind of maths because it's very much pure maths. So, some students don't appreciate that kind of competitive context. But yes, that is the kind of what we would call super curricular activity that would stand out to us when we're looking at a student's application.
Great. And what about interviews? I mean, are you going to bring back the in-person interviews anytime soon?
Okay, so this is something to say. There's a big difference. So perhaps some people listening to this are thinking about Oxford versus Cambridge. So one big difference between Oxford and Cambridge is that Oxford colleges are better able to reach agreement as to what they're doing. So all Oxford colleges have succeeded in agreeing that they will all interview online until 2028. So if you apply to Oxford, you know what you're getting. Cambridge colleges differ in their approaches. So you do need to be mindful of that fact when you're choosing a Cambridge college to apply to. So I can tell you what happened in terms of the spread of practices across colleges in December 2024, but it might be different in December 2025. So that was what happened in this last year, was that the majority of the 29 colleges that take undergraduates interviewed online. And even those colleges that were interviewing UK candidates in person invited students based outside the UK to attend interview online, with 2 exceptions. So there were 2 colleges that did ask even non-UK students to come to interview in person. So that's 2 out of 29. It's a minority. The number might increase this year, but I still think that the majority of colleges would be asking students based in Cyprus to attend an interview, or more likely 2 interviews online.
And interview questions.
Yep.
Based on the personal statement, based on A-level syllabus, these crazy Cambridge interview questions that we've heard about.
Okay, so a few myths to dispel. So the first myth I want to dispel is about what the interview is seeking to assess. So one reason students often say to me, I really wish you were interviewing in person because I want you to meet me and see what kind of person I am and, what qualities I would bring to your course. And actually, the interview really isn't assessing what kind of person you are. So what an interview is doing is testing your potential to thrive on a very particular course at Cambridge. And it's looking for a few very particular indicators of academic potential. It isn't about you as a person. If you don't get through a Cambridge interview, that doesn't mean that you're not a great person. And actually online versus or in the flesh, they're both reasonable ways to assess academic suitability for a course. You might get 1 or 2 questions about your personal statement in an interview, probably as warm-up questions. It will vary a little bit by course. So, if you apply for English literature, say, you might well get asked in some depth about novelists that you've mentioned in your personal statement. If you're applying for maths, may or may not get a warm-up question based on your personal statement. More likely, you'll be diving straight into the maths problems. So Cambridge interviews are largely task or stimulus-based. So you'll be given something to do, a problem to wrangle with, maybe before the interview. So you might be given something to prepare half an hour, 20 minutes beforehand, maybe some maths problems to tackle, perhaps something to read, a picture to look at, and then you would spend your interview looking at that task. It might overlap with things you've done at A-level. It might not.
Okay, that's great. Are there any resources that you can recommend for international students who are thinking to apply to Cambridge next year, for example?
In terms of preparing for interview?
Interview and applications to Cambridge in general.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so if you're thinking about applying for engineering, you are in luck. So engineering students have the best set of resources available to them, and that is a website called iwanttostudyengineering.org. So if you go to this website, I Want to Study Engineering, it has examples of the kinds of problems that you would encounter in an engineering interview. So there you can go and really get stuck into the kinds of problems that you would confront in the process.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
I wish we had websites like that in other subjects. Other things that you can look at. So if you're applying for a subject where there is an admissions test, you can go online and look at some of the practice materials. And actually, I wouldn't say I don't think it's a question of you can go online. I think you must. Don't go into those admissions tests blind, because they are multiple choice, they are fast paced, they are online. It's not the same sort of format that you will have encountered in your A-level studies. So take advantage of those resources. There's all sorts of resources available on the university website. There are films you can watch showing past interviews, so you can see what students experienced. You can look on social media. So the university has great web resources. The colleges have great web resources. So Christ's College, which is my college, has very detailed links and ideas on each of our subject web pages that will help you identify relevant supercurricular activity, for example. Gonville and Keys College has a really great TikTok feed with kind of practical tips for applying. So there are different materials out there.
Clever to stay current.
There are materials that are made available by students themselves. So there's a website called Inside Uni, which has been put together by students, which gives you examples of the kind of things you might be asked to do for different subjects at different colleges in both Oxford and Cambridge at interview. Cambridge University Cypriot Society, you could reach out to them, ask them to connect you to some current Cypriot students.
Is there a strong Cypriot society, would you say, at Cambridge?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, there is.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, Cypriots are pretty sociable. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that Cypriot students at Cambridge don't hang out with non-Cypriot students, but they do also hang out with each other.
Fair enough. We also have two of our graduates currently studying at Christ's College, University of Cambridge, which is nice.
Yeah.
us
So
and for
definitely you could reach out to them, but sadly we don't have students from in every single subject from Cyprus. So you might have to use the Cypriot Society to find students at other colleges studying other subjects.
Okay, interesting, very helpful. Emily, ever since Brexit and students from Cyprus applying as international students, unless obviously they're holding a UK passport or they have the pre-settled status, applying as an international student has, for various reasons, we'll come into fees a little bit later on. But in terms of places available to international students versus home students, would you say that international students have it harder now following
They have it
Brexit?
much harder in medicine. So medicine is the one subject where we have caps imposed by the government on the number of non-home fee status students that we can take. So the number of international fee status students that we can take. The cap is actually a percentage of the whole cohort, but broadly in practice, it means that we're only taking 22 or 23 international medics each year.
And just to clarify, that's from the whole University of Cambridge.
That's for the whole university.
Not per college.
Not per college. So actually Christ's, I think, has the most international medics. I have 3 offer holders at the moment. So that's more than any other college, and that's still a very small number. Beyond medicine, no, we don't have targets or quotas, either for international students or for students from Cyprus. So a little bit different from perhaps other UK universities, certainly different from US universities where they might be looking for a specific number of Cypriot students. Subjects other than medicine, broadly, we just want the best students.
Okay, fair enough. And obviously, as I just mentioned, the students with the UK passport or children of people with a UK passport are entitled to home fee status up until 2027. That date is creeping up on us.
It is, yes.
Do you have any inside information regarding a possible extension on that deadline?
Absolutely none. I mean, I think the only thing, so that is part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement, that that students starting courses before 2028 who are UK citizens, children of UK citizens, will be counted as home fee status as long as they've been resident in the EU for 3 years beforehand. Obviously, our government and the EU are fine-tuning our relationship at some point in this year, but 2025 there are quite a lot of big political issues on the table. Don't know where that is going to rank in order of priority. So I would say if you are maybe in GCSEs or younger and you're thinking about entry in 2028 or later, prepare for the worst. And then if the best happens and, you're still home fee status, then
That's great.
That's a great thing.
Fees.
Yes.
We needed to get that topic out there because it's something that a lot of parents are concerned about.
Yeah.
Fees at Cambridge for international students
they're very high.
Very high. And then added to that is the college fee.
Yep.
Which takes the fee even higher than most other UK universities. Is there support?
There is support. I mean, what I would say is, so obviously when you look at Cambridge tuition fees, you look at both, there's a university tuition fee and a college fee, which is also a tuition fee. So two separate numbers. I think because of that, we are up there with Oxford. So Oxford give a combined number. All colleges charge the same. It's added to the university fees, but definitely Oxford and Cambridge are much more expensive than many other universities. The fees in medicine and veterinary medicine are particularly startlingly high. So I do think if you are considering either medicine or veterinary medicine, think hard about whether Cambridge is really the right university for you. There is financial aid available, but much of it is only part cost. And so the more expensive the course, the lower the proportion that it's going to cover. But setting aside the fact that some courses really are astronomically expensive, yes, so there is some financial aid that is available no matter which college you apply to or hold an offer from. So the university offers so they probably offer about 60 part cost scholarships. In reality, about 40 students will take those up. So the university offers scholarships of between £10,000 and £15,000, plus a very small number of full cost scholarships. So those are available regardless of college. Beyond that, there are some scholarships that are available at particular colleges. So there are a small number of colleges that are able to offer full cost scholarships, and a few colleges that will offer part cost scholarships that you can hold in combination, perhaps with a university scholarship. So those part cost scholarships held together or a full cost scholarship could get you over the line. The scholarships are competitive. So I would say broadly about 1 in 5 students who applies to Cambridge gets an offer of admission. We don't ask you to apply for scholarships until after we've made our offers of admission, so you don't need to worry about that until you know whether you have a place. And from that point, probably about 1 in 5 offer holders who applies for a scholarship will get one. So the numbers are small. Some of that is because we get people applying for scholarships who don't actually need financial assistance. So
I was just going to ask, scholarships offers are determined by academic merit or financial need?
So they're first based on financial need. So if you don't have financial need or can't demonstrate financial need to us, you will not get a scholarship.
Okay.
But if you do have financial need, beyond that, it's academic merit.
And does Christ College offer such scholarships?
We do. We offer, it varies a little bit, but it's a minimum of 5 part cost scholarships a year. So the basic award is 10,000. If you have financial need, we will also waive the college fee. The college fee for Christ is just over 12,000. Embarrassingly, that makes us one of the 2 cheapest colleges. Because 12,000 is still quite a lot of money. But if you have one of our scholarships and you need us to waive the college fee, we'd waive that. So that would take you to 22,000.
Fees.
Scholarship. So the value of the scholarship is 22,000. Then you could hold that. So we're just launching a couple of scholarships, which will be co-funded, where we will give that 22,000 and then another organisation will put in 30,000. So there you would have a package of over 50,000. But you can also hold our scholarships with the university scholarships. So they're not full cost, but they can make it affordable.
Definitely help.
They do help. And as I said, there are a very small number of colleges that have either one or two or maybe more full cost scholarships.
And how should students go about choosing the college that they would like to apply to at Cambridge?
Well, so the first point is if you need financial aid,
look at the colleges.
Look at the colleges. Look at college websites. So frustratingly, there is no central database.
Okay.
Where you can just sort of say, I am a student from Cyprus wanting to study geography, what scholarships are available to me? It would be great if such a website exists. It doesn't. You're going to have to do a bit of research. And I'm not going to list the colleges that offer scholarships now because probably by the time you listen to this podcast, somebody will have launched a new scholarship and it will have changed.
Fair enough.
So that's the first thing to think about. The other thing I would say to think about is interview format, simply because there are likely to be a couple of colleges that require you to go in person. And if you don't want to be asked to fly to Cambridge at 1 week's notice, you might want to rule out those colleges. But broadly speaking, the rest of us are interviewing online. Assuming you're not worried about either financial aid or interview format, things to think about. There are 31 colleges, 29 accept undergraduate students. 2 of them only accept women, so you might rule those out if you're not a woman. 3 only accept students age over 21. So unless you're taking a number of gap years, probably rule those out as well. Beyond that, things to think about: location. So Cambridge is a pretty small city. Colleges are clustered primarily in the centre, but there are 2 colleges which are quite a long way out of town. You might like that, you might not. Architecture, appearance, history, a lot of students care about that. Some people want the whole kind of Harry Potter vibe. They want medieval, they want wood panelling. They're not worried about, if the nearest bathroom is 10 minutes away and the wind whistles through the windows in December. So there are colleges that can offer you that whole Harry Potter thing.
I think Christ College, because obviously I've visited Christ College.
Christ has a bit of that.
Offers that wonderful, I would say, in my opinion, Harry Potter vibe.
Yeah, we also have some modern accommodation actually at Christ. So yeah, not as about 40. So the other thing to say about Harry Potter, may not come with en suites, may not come with well insulated rooms. So about 40% of our rooms are en suite, but not all of them. There are colleges which are very modern and have very recent accommodation. There are colleges that are Victorian. There are colleges that are kind of classical architecture. If that's your vibe, you can go for one of those. More seriously, you could look at the size of the community. So some colleges take 60 students a year. Some colleges take 200. Some take, 120, 130. So if you want to be in a really close-knit community where everyone knows your name, you could go for a college that takes 60 or 70 students a year. If you want a bit more anonymity, you might prefer a college with 200 students a year. Colleges are different sizes in terms of, how big the campus is. Some of them have specific facilities. So core facilities will be common to most colleges. Most colleges, all colleges will have a library. Colleges will offer you the kind of sports facilities you'd have at school, tennis courts, sports grounds, so on. But there are some things which are unique to particular colleges. So Christ's is the only college which has cats. So there are cats, one or two other colleges have cats that belong to members of staff, but we're the only college where there are actual college cats. So if that's important to you, that might be a reason to pick us. We also have the oldest swimming pool in Europe. So if you want to swim in not the same waters as Charles Darwin, but the same space as Charles Darwin, you could pick us. But then other colleges will have their own distinct features. And for some students, those will be important.
I think a trip to Cambridge is in order for students who are seriously considering applying to the University of Cambridge, if you're able to, a trip to Cambridge.
At least use the virtual tour. That could be a starting point.
Easier and cheaper option. It depends on, I would say, what the student wants from the university
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is the greatest misconception about studying at Cambridge?
Oh, I, I don't even know where I start.
Too many to name.
Well, so one thing that I do hear quite commonly is that Cambridge is that you have to be multifaceted, that you have to be very confident, that it's a place for extroverts. And I actually once read a really sweet application form. It was so we have you apply via UCAS, you fill out the UCAS application. You also have an application form called My Cambridge, where you can put in an additional personal statement. And this girl applying for maths had written, I've applied to Christ because I looked on the website and I read that there were introverts at the college. I am also an introvert and I wanted to be somewhere where there were people like me.
That's a very honest application.
Which I thought was really sweet. And actually, there are introverts at all colleges. But yeah, so, I mean, it's possible to come to Cambridge and thrive as a shy person and to find your niche.
Yeah. Fair enough. That's, what about the workload? Because, I mean, I do believe that study hours, workload may be one of the greater misconceptions about studying at Cambridge. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, so Cambridge, so it's trimester system, 8 weeks in the autumn term, 8 weeks in the spring term, 6 weeks in the summer term. So that means that it is intense when you are there and you are doing an amount of work which is, I would say from my own experience teaching at the University of London as well as in Cambridge, is significantly higher at Cambridge than you would be doing at another university, and you are doing it in a short time frame.
So is that because of the shorter terms?
It's also because of our expectations.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you come to Cambridge, you would be looking at doing a minimum of 40 hours work a week. It's like a job. I mean, and that, if you're a hardworking student who is aware of the fact that in life, mostly, you'll be working at least 40 hours a week, that may not, come as too much of an unpleasant surprise to you. But for some students, 40 hours a week or more is not what they had anticipated when they got to university. So it's like school but worse.
Like school but worse.
I would say, yeah.
That's a slogan. What do students do outside of those 8 weeks? Do they leave Cambridge, go back home? Are there things to do in Cambridge in terms of societies or research or internships? Do students usually stay on? Because like you said, the very short term, I mean, does that mean that a lot of students are leaving in between?
Yeah, I mean, so most students would go somewhere else over the summer. Not all students. So you have basically 4 months over the summer. You have June, July, August, September to do things in. So most students, so some students will get internships in Cambridge itself, but some will do internships in London or elsewhere. Some students will do research placements over that period in Cambridge. Some will do research placements at other universities. Both those things are pretty common. Occasionally students might do internships over the Easter term or the Easter vacation or the Christmas vacation. More commonly, they go home in those vacations. You don't have to. So we do have students who stay in Cambridge, often for personal reasons over Christmas or Easter, or they might be just too far to get home comfortably. I think Cypriot students mostly come home.
Maybe more often than
possibly more often. If you're a student from Mongolia, it's a bit more of a journey. But in terms of there are people having fun outside their studies. There were, I think, last count 800 university clubs and societies, and there are also funds available both within the university and the colleges to set up new societies if you want to. So probably you will find people who share your interests already in clubs and societies. But so I think one of our students came to Cambridge this year and was really distraught to find out there was not a Pokemon society. So he was, yeah, I mean, it's, I
So
guess.
he founded a Pokemon.
So he found it. So he got funding to set up a Pokemon society, and now
Yeah.
has some other students to hang out with who are interested in Pokemon.
So for potential students who are thinking to apply to Cambridge, there is now a Pokemon society.
There is a Pokemon society, along with, as I said, 799 other societies. Yes.
Okay, so there's a lot to do. If you're not a Cypriot student, flying your mum over to cook for you during vacation time, there are other ways that you can spend your vacation time.
Exactly.
What would you say is the greatest challenge that students usually find when they start their university life at Cambridge? Is it the workload or
Cypriot students, often the weather.
the weather?
So I think, be aware there's that period in like November, December where it's overcast all the time. So you will not see the sun. There'll be a period where you just don't see the sun. We actually call that fifth week blues, and it happens in the spring term as well. Fifth week blues, basically you haven't seen the sun for 5 weeks. You're behind on all your deadlines, and you feel like term is never going to end. That is quite a challenge, and it's a common phenomenon.
I'm sure there's a support system in place to help students, no?
Well, we can't do much about the weather, but yes. In terms of pastoral support and welfare, actually a lot. So you have 2 academics who are assigned to you to take particular care of you. One would be your director of studies, who is an academic in your own subject, who is there to monitor your academic progress, to help you choose the right courses for you as you go through, and generally to support you in succeeding on your degree. You also have a personal tutor, who's someone who will be more interested in your well-being and how you're getting on, outside your studies, and how your studies are kind of interfacing with your social life. Beyond those 2 people, there will be there are a counselling service. There's a counselling service centrally. Colleges may also have their own counsellors. Most colleges will have a multi-faith chaplain or multi-faith religious facilities. There'll be a chaplain. There will be porters who can help you with practical things. There'll be a student union welfare rep. Our cats are nominally part of the welfare support that we provide.
There is a strong sense of community and support for students who are thinking to apply to Cambridge.
Definitely.
Right. And we have our graduates who are there, and I'm sure they would be more than happy to speak to students who are thinking to apply and give their take on university life at Cambridge. So there's always GC School graduates that they can reach out to as well. One piece of advice that if you could give to students who are thinking of applying to Cambridge next year, one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'm going to break it into 2 bits of advice. So the first piece of advice I'd give is the only certainty about applying to Cambridge is that if you don't apply, you won't get in. But the second point is Cambridge is not a one-shot thing. So plenty of outstanding students apply to Cambridge and don't get in simply because of the volume of competition. If you don't get in the first time, you might get in the second time. There are students who reapply with A-levels in hand who are successful. If you don't get in for bachelor's, or you decide that really it's beyond you financially at bachelor's level, there are more places available at master's level. There is more funding available at master's level. You might come to us for a PhD. We have professors who did not get into Cambridge as 18-year-olds. So I think, take some pressure off yourself by thinking it's not a one-shot thing, and get excited about your other university choices as well.
That's lovely. And that's a lovely way to finish. Okay. Thank you so much for coming, Emily. Once again, it's always such a delight to have you with us. Thank you very much for sharing your advice, your knowledge, your guidance. And if students want to get in touch, I know that you've said before that it's okay for them to reach out. Yeah,
please do reach out. Cambridge admissions is complicated. We know students have questions. Ask them. That's what we're here for.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to our viewers. And we'll see you again soon.